Alright, this video might be a little bit different. I was wanting to record my workout the other day. It was going to be a somewhat significant workout, but when I got to the gym, we'll say it was unsuitable for filming. Which brings me to a quick thing I want to touch on. It's not important to you because you don't live in Taiwan, but I guess maybe perspective, maybe somebody finds it interesting as far as cultures are concerned. I'm American, obviously, but something that is not unique to America, you actually see it in a lot of Western cultures, is this general idea of like gym etiquette. Every country, culture has their slight tweaks and variations on gym etiquette. One example being that in America, for example, in the US, you see people step over their barbells all the time. It's not a big deal. Whereas if you go to a lot of these Eastern European countries, especially former Soviet countries, or even Russia today, they do not step over the bar. It's considered kind of like disrespectful and blah, 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 blah. Like, you respect the bar, you don't step over it, you go around it, you know? But although there are those little tweaks and those little differences, a lot of the stuff is pretty much universal. Things like, you know, you don't own the gym. You are there sharing the space with other people. So your workout should not directly inconvenience and conflict with people all the way around you. An example of that being is like when you're using a machine, for example, that's a machine you're using. Now, if it's a really empty gym, there's really nobody in there, maybe you can use two machines that are side by side as like a superset, right? But nobody ever assumes that they are so important that they could go into a crowded gym and then suddenly just call an entire section of the gym to themselves. Like, no, I'm doing a circuit and I'm gonna use all that stuff. That's all for me right now, you know? Like, people don't do that because that'd be fucking ridiculous. Like, you have to share the space. I'll get to that in a minute. But another thing is people in any country, Western country, know that you clean up after yourself. You act like an adult. So when you take weights to use on the bar, when you're done, you put the weights back. You re-rack your weights, you re-rack your dumbbells, you wipe down your bench, it's whatever. That has nothing to do with viruses, you know, current viruses or anything else. It's always been a thing forever that when you're done with a machine or a bench or whatever else, you wipe it down. And at least with a dry towel, but for the last few decades, it's been pretty commonplace that they'll have, you know, spray bottles with disinfectant. You can spray the machine and wipe it down. If you go to any LA Fitness, most of those have dispensers, like paper towel dispensers with a spray bottle at nearly every single station. So you can actually rip off the paper towel, spray the machine, wipe it down, and then toss it so it's all sanitized, right? There's a lot of examples of these things, but what I'm getting at is that none of that stuff exists in Taiwan. Now, it's a lot of the Asian countries don't have the gym culture the way the Western countries do, just because historically gyms have not been part of the culture for as long. I don't want to say all Asian countries, because I know, for example, there is a bit of gym culture in places like Japan, for example, but given Taiwan as the prime example, because this is where I live, which is what I'm used to, gym culture does not exist at all. And what's hard to deal with is the fact that in these situations, you can't help but to think that the people are being rude, or they're being selfish, or arrogant, or whatever else, depending on what it is that they're doing. And I have to actively remind myself that people in Taiwan are actually unbelievably kind and friendly. This is a very peaceful, friendly, awesome country. So they're not trying to be dicks. It's like, it's just, there's not even the slightest bit of suspicion that they should be doing something, right? It just doesn't occur to them. It doesn't exist here as a thing. For them, it's not common sense. So when you go into a gym, you will very commonly see somebody trying to take up half of the gym, like, oh no, I'm using that. And it's very common that you'll go into a gym, and as soon as you walk in the doors, like, I'll give an example. I walk in the doors of my gym, and there's, you know, I see the machine I want to use, like it's a squat rack, for example, and it's empty. And I think, cool, that's the one I'm going to use because it's empty. And I take my time, you know, go to the locker, grab my spray bottle and my towel out of there, look at the squat rack, it's still empty, cool. Then I go through some other stuff, you know, put my stuff down, get my stuff ready, look at my squat rack, still empty, cool, you know, because I want to see if anybody's going to take the rack, or if anybody's using it, maybe they just went to the bathroom. And I go through this whole process where I intentionally move slowly, and I intentionally take my time. I'm trying to make sure that I didn't just come in at that perfect time in between somebody's sets. I want to make sure that what appears to be an empty squat rack that's available is indeed an empty rack that's available. And basically what this turns into, and this exact thing has happened to me more than once, is that from the time I spotted the empty squat rack to the time that I'm actually getting ready to lift the weights, like at this point I've already gone to the rack, started setting it up the way that I want to use it, you know, putting the J-cups where I want them, grabbing the bar that I want, grabbing the weights that I want, loading them. From the time I spotted the empty rack to the time I'm actually about to use it has been a solid 10 minutes. And nobody is even in that section of the gym at all, you know? And then as I'm in the middle of my set, somebody walks up out of nowhere and they say, oh, I'm using this. Fucking seriously? Yeah, I just went to have a cigarette, you know? Oh, I just went to this. And to them, it's totally normal. Like, but I was using it. And I know you think that sounds ridiculous, like that's uncalled for, there's no excuse, I agree. But it's really common here. People just don't get it. That's how foreign of a concept it is here. So, another problem I've had very recently in the gym, like the other night, is I went in, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna film my stuff tonight, I have my camera with me. And as soon as I walked in, somebody was playing their music on the gym radio, which is not a problem, we're allowed to do that. But they had this system just cranked all the way up to the point where not only could you hear the gym music out on the street, when you went into the gym, like the mirrors were rattling. Like it was to that, like this might damage your hearing sort of level. Like this might damage the speaker, like you're gonna blow one of these speakers out. It was so unbelievably loud, which is, I don't want to sound like a grandpa, but like it's totally unnecessary. Especially because at least if this was a powerlifting gym, like a dedicated powerlifting gym, and one of the big guys in there that always has his name on the board was going for a new PR and he has a team with him and they were trying to psych him up, so they just crank that radio, it's a temporary thing, totally understand. But that's not what this is. This is just a normal little, you know, low-key gym. These guys aren't serious lifters and they're listening to some weird Asian pop just as background noise, not even as hype music. And they're not training very seriously, but they're just shaking the walls with how loud it is. And I don't want to be rude. I'm thinking I just want to do my thing, do my workout, go home. So I put my headphones in and I turn my music on and I can hear their music over mine. And it gets to a point where I'm cranking my volume all the way up. And I don't use my phone for music. Usually I use an actual iPod Classic. The 5th gen, they have really good DAC and everything else, like very good sound quality, but it also gets very loud. So I have good headphones, actual like wired headphones, and an old iPod Classic, which means not only is it very good sound quality, but I never turn the volume up too high. Because if you go like halfway up on an iPod Classic, that's loud. You go 3/4 of the way up, it's hurting your ears, right? It's way louder than any phone I've ever had could ever go. Well, it's getting to the point where I'm damn near maxing out the volume on my iPad Classic, and it's actually hurting my ears. Like, it's making me kind of cringe, like I think I'm doing hearing damage. And yet, with as loud as this is on these in-ear headphones that are sealed in my ears, I can still hear their music over mine. That's how loud their stuff is. So eventually, I just said, fuck it, and I actually went over, because these people weren't even in my section of the gym, they were in the other section. So I went over to every single speaker that was in my section of the gym and I just pulled the wires out of it to make that entire section quieter. Like, you guys can listen to this insanely, unjustifiably loud music in your half of the gym. Not happening over here, fuck that. Rant over. But anyway, what I'm getting at is I'm have to do this talk right now in my car because I have no idea what's going to be going on once I get into the gym. As far as the workout today, it's leg day. I'm doing squat and stuff. My leg training is a little bit different. My leg training has never been the same since my injury that I had a while back. I've mentioned it before. I'm not going to go into the details. Basically, even when I was over and done with powerlifting, but I was lifting for fun, before this most recent injury that I had a couple years ago, my best squat, for example, was 310 kilograms. And that was, you know, wearing tennis shoes, walked it out, no spotters. I could do 310. I got a video of it. It's never been back to that at all. I've noticed that I just have to be much more careful with my hips and my back. Oddly enough, I can load deadlift. I've learned how to like work around and load my deadlift and still progressively get heavier and heavier on my deadlift and feel safe. But trying to overload my squat is a very touchy thing. It seems like I'm always running into issues where I can tell it's going to be a problem and I got to back off and try something else. So one of the things I did was I stopped squatting heavy before this recent break. I only went up to like 200 kilograms on squat on my heaviest sets, and most of the time I wouldn't even go that heavy. Most days I'd only go up to like 160 kilograms, maybe 180 kilograms for some reps. But it was kind of like old school bodybuilding style. I used a real narrow stance. I went all the way down, like ass to ankles. A lot of the time it was paused squat, so I'd actually sit on my ankles and let my breath out, like a Russian decompression squat. And then I'd take a new breath and I'd blast back from up from a dead stop. I was trying to find ways to make it challenging and to develop the muscle without having to just load as much weight as possible. But now there's been this big break, and I'm coming back after being out of the gym because of the lockdowns and stuff. So of course my squat's not as strong. My first squat workout I did last week, I ended up just doing beltless paused squats the way I just described, and I only went up to like 150 kilograms, and it was feeling kind of tough and I didn't want to push it too far. I think today I'm going to get a little bit ballsy and I'm going to try opening my feet up, opening my stance up, and getting a little bit more of like a power squat. But I know that my hip muscles are not used to it, and I have no idea if it's going to be one of those things where as soon as I open my legs up, it's like the epiphany and it feels great and I can start slapping weight on the bar, or if it's going to feel super dangerous and shaky because those muscles are now atrophied and they're not used to it. I really don't know. But either way, for common sense and safety reasons, I'm trying to avoid injuries. I'm not going to go crazy on my leg workout today. Today is just about kind of going through the motions and making sure I'm effectively working the muscles without getting too crazy with anything. So you'll see what I can improvise. So far with the wide stance squat, like my old power stance, it's feeling all right. I just did 170 for a set of 3, and I noticed that my right glute started kind of locking up, and it's one of those ways where it's the sensation as to which I'm not sure if it's just not used to being activated in this way, or if it's actually starting to spasm a little bit from the old injury. I'm not sure. So I've added a little bit more weight. I'm at 180 kilograms now, and I'm just planning on doing 1 rep unless it miraculously feels really good. I'm just going to do 1 rep and see how it feels. If it feels good, I'll go up a little bit heavier and I'll start inching my way up. But if I keep feeling that right glute starting to seize, then I'm just going to back off and I'm going to switch to a narrow stance, kind of like what I was describing before, and just start doing like narrow stance, ass to ankles, pause reps. So we'll see how it goes. So, funny story. I'm doing this pause squat, narrow stance, long pause squat like I was saying, and I only like to record my top set because I don't want to show you 5 or 6 sets of the exact same thing getting just incrementally heavier or the same exact weight per set. And that initial squat, the wide stance kind of power squat, like I said, it did a number on my hips. They don't hurt, but I can tell they're very taxed. So now I've switched over to my narrow stance pause squats, and they're definitely affected. It's much more taxing than usual. So I just did my last set of that, and right as I was about to strip the weight off, I realized, oh wait a minute, I didn't realize I was going to be done so soon, so I didn't record that set. So this is now my final set. that I'm only doing just so I can get it on video. See how it goes. Well, I nearly fell on my face on that one. I don't know if you could tell by the angle, but I started dipping forward and I had to stop and pull myself back before I could go up. That was very nearly embarrassing. This is becoming a full-on problem. My hips are locking up and my glute muscles are so sore. And now, actively, I'm getting a good leg workout, so now my quads are also starting to wear out. So I've moved on to front squat, and I thought, oh, this should be easy because I don't have to use my glutes and hips so much. Absolutely not. I actually don't even know if I'm going to get this next set. We'll see. My gym doesn't have very much leg equipment. I mean, thank God they have good squat racks, but they don't have a lot of machines for legs. They have a lot of redundancy for upper body. They have 2 different chest press machines, both by Cybex, right next to each other, but not a lot of leg stuff. However, thank God they do have this nice old school Cybex hack squat machine. And the cool thing about a hack squat machine is that, you know, if you have a leg press machine, for example, you can really only use it for leg press for the most part. But hack squat machines, you can hack the crap out of those, no pun intended. You can do all sorts of stuff. I can use that as a leg press machine. I can use it as a compact leg press machine. I can use it as an RDL machine, as a traditional hack squat machine. I can do Platz squats on it. So we're gonna do a few different exercises all on this same machine. And if you're wondering as you see them, like, why is he doing it on that machine? It's because it's the only one I got.